These are my podcast hosting techniques. You see, you feed your guest wine for the first hour, and then after that, you really start asking them the questions that you want them to, go a little bit deeper on. And I think it worked.
It's a good thing for me that my life is an open book, whether or not I'm drunk. So, are you ready? All right. Hi there, I'm Nora Dunn, and I'm otherwise known as the Professional Hobo, and welcome to my series where I speak with ordinary people who have extraordinary remote careers and travel lifestyles. Now, before I introduce my guest today, I encourage you to check out the description for a bevy of links, including a free checklist of 10 things to do before you travel long-term, and this will surely get you started on your own long-term travel journey. Now, my guest today is Matt BOWLES. He's a full-time digital nomad with no permanent base since 2013, and he's run his company from 65 different countries on 6 continents in the last 8 years. He co-founded Maverick Investor Group in 2007 as a fully remote company to help people buy cash-flowing rental properties in the best U.S. real estate markets, regardless of where they live. He's been featured in major national media, and he was one of the top 50 real estate opinion makers and market leaders. He's also the host of the Maverick Show podcast, where he interviews today's most interesting location-independent entrepreneurs and world travelers. I speak from personal experience because I'm one of them. Matt is a proponent of stylish minimalism and travels the world through multiple climates with carry-on luggage only. He's a sought-after speaker and has addressed conferences around the world, ranging from the Nomad Summit to South by Southwest, on topics relating to real estate investing, location-independent entrepreneurship, and long-term world travel. He was also featured in the forthcoming film called Roamers, which is going to come out in 2021, the first ever studio-backed documentary about the digital nomad lifestyle, about which I'm quite jealous, and it is one of many things I'm going to ask you about today. But first, welcome, Matt. Thank you so much for joining me.
Nora, I am so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
No, this is really great because just last week we had a conversation because I was a guest on your podcast, and that was a wine time podcast. So over the course of a little over an hour, I became quite inebriated, but hopefully I still made sense.
These are my podcast hosting techniques. You see, you feed your guest wine for the first hour, and then after that, you really start asking them the questions that you want them to, go a little bit deeper on. And I think it worked.
Well, and that you did. And it's a good thing for me that my life is an open book, whether or not I'm drunk. So, either way, I think we had a fun little chat. And I'm hoping that we're going to have a fun chat today.
Super excited.
And in preparation for this interview, I did a little bit of internet stalking on you. And I learned a lot of really interesting things. Like, first of all, like me, you've had a lot of past lives. And one of the things that I found was interesting, you did peace and justice advocacy work in conflict regions. Can we start there? I'm really curious how that happened and what that was like.
So I grew up in Buffalo, New York, not far from the Canadian border, spent many a night and weekend in your amazing city of Toronto, in fact. And then I was sort of deciding, when I went off to college, what do I want to study? What do I want to do? Oh, heck, I have absolutely no idea. So I went to college in Cleveland, started taking classes, and all of a sudden I stumbled upon sociology, and I started learning about all of these things that I really hadn't been taught in high school. I was growing up in primarily white suburbs of Buffalo, New York, and we were not learning a lot of stuff about African-American history in the United States and, gender inequality and class stratification and all these types of things didn't really feature prominently into my high school curriculum. So I get to college and I'm learning all of this new and interesting stuff. And then I had my advisor was Native American. He was part Lakota and part Dakota. So then I started learning all about the history of Native nations and colonialism and all of that kind of stuff. And then I started looking internationally as well. And I ended up studying abroad in Ireland. And I am of Irish American heritage, but knew very, very little. I'm 4 generations in the US, so knew very little about my own Irish history and the history of, in fact, the Irish decolonial struggle against the British, which is still going on today because the northeastern 6 counties of Ireland are still occupied by the British to this day. It was their first colony and it remains their last colony. And so I went to study abroad, and I lived in Dublin for a year. I studied at Trinity College for a year. I studied, politics and was learning all about Irish history, was spending time in the north of Ireland. And in fact, it was an incredibly interesting year to be there because my junior year of college was 1997, 1998, which happened to be the year that they signed the Good Friday Peace Accords in the north of Ireland. And
Wow.
so I was there the whole year. I got to follow, I was reading the newspaper every day, following the whole process. And then I was in Belfast the day that they signed it and got to meet with a number of the people and all this kind of stuff. And it was amazing. Now, meanwhile, back in my university, my advisor, as I mentioned to you, was Native American. And so what we started doing together was doing comparative looks at the colonial processes over the Irish compared with the colonial processes over the Native nations in the United States in particular, right? Very similar to what happened in Canada, right? And so we started doing this. And then in the fall of my senior year, I ended up doing a peace and conflict resolution study abroad semester program that focused on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And that included a trip to Israel, the West Bank, the Gaza Strip, and Egypt, where we actually met in person with people from all different sides of the conflict. We actually got to see what refugee camps looked like and settlements looked like and what the Israeli apartheid structure actually looked like up close when you saw that, and what the Israeli colonial processes over Palestinians actually looked like. And then again, with my advisor, we then started doing comparative work on the Israeli colonial processes over Palestinians compared with the European colonial processes over Native nations, and all of that kind of stuff. So a lot of that just kind of came together. And then all of a sudden, I graduated college and I said, I have no idea what I want to do now. I'm interested in all this stuff. I'm passionate about it. It's important. What do I do with this? So I said, you know what? I'm going to go to grad school. So I did a master's degree in international peace and conflict resolution. I continued to go deeper into the situation in the north of Ireland, as well as the situation in Palestine. I started doing a lot of activist work around those issues, started bringing international observer groups over to the north of Ireland to monitor human rights abuses during this contentious time in the summer that they have there, as well as organizing alternative education trips to Israel and Palestine, where we were able to bring students there and actually show them what's going on and allow them to learn about it from the people that are living there and see it for themselves. And so I did this throughout my master's degree. And then after I got my master's, I worked in the nonprofit space for my entire professional career. So I was doing human rights, civil liberties advocacy in the United States. A lot of my professional work there focused on the post 9/11 civil liberty abuses that were happening right after 9/11 in the United States, with racial targeting of Arabs and Muslims and South Asians. And I was involved in doing grassroots organizing to try to, push back a lot of those more repressive policies that the government was putting on domestically. So a lot of that work was domestic focused. And all of this took me right up until the age of 30. So this is literally my entire academic background and my entire professional career up until the age of 30, at which point I ended up changing organizations. And then as soon as I got to this new organization, I was there maybe about 6 months. And then all of a sudden I walk into the office one day and they say, you know what, this isn't working out. We're going to let you go. And you got to be at the office by 5 o'clock today. And then my head was like, whoa, what? I just moved to this new city, and I just moved out to Los Angeles, and I'm out here, and I'm what? So it was on that day when I got fired from my job that I said, I am actually not going to apply for another job. I'm not going to work for somebody else. I am going to figure out how to start my own business. And that began my entrepreneurial journey. Now, there was only one problem. I had no idea how to start a business, but that's, that was in the next chapter.
Now, was this business Maverick Investor Group?
It was. That was part of my, when on that day, I said, okay, I've now just lost my job. I now have to think about what type of business could I start, right? What do I know about? Because professionally, I had just worked in the nonprofit space. And so what I had done is I had begun on my own while I was working in the nonprofit space. At some point, I had realized that, I'm never going to make a lot of money with my salary. So I should learn how to start investing. And so somebody's like, oh, you should buy a house. And I was like, okay, can I afford a house? So you research it, figure it out. I ended up buying a house, and I bought a 4-bedroom house, and I rented out 3 bedrooms to friends of mine. So I had 3 streams of rental income. And that year that I bought the house, it appreciated in value more than my entire annual salary.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, so that's interesting. So then what I started doing is I had started, I did a cash out refinance, and now I had some investment capital, and I started buying rental properties in other markets. And then so people started coming to me, like my friends started coming to me. They said, hey, I see you're buying rental properties. Like, that's cool. How are you doing that? Can you show me how to buy rental properties? I said, sure. So I start showing my friends what I'm doing, how. And so then my friends start buying rental properties the same way I'm doing it. Now, as I was doing this, I noticed that the real estate brokers that were helping us to buy these rental properties were getting paid a commission on the properties that we closed, but we were not paying it because in the United States, the seller pays 100% of the brokerage fees. So the buyer pays nothing. So I was like, that's cool. Like, they're getting paid. That's fine. Well, I'm not paying it. That's cool. They're providing me value. That's great. So I understood this business model. I understood, number one, that I could help people to buy rental properties, and that there was a demand for that because people were already coming to me saying, hey, can you help me to buy a rental property? And I was already doing it. I was delivering the service. I just wasn't getting paid anything for it. And so I realized if I could get on the brokerage side of this arrangement, literally just get a brokerage license, then I could actually get paid for just doing what I was already doing, which is helping my friends buy rental properties. And the most amazing part about this business model is I don't have to charge my friends any money at all because the seller pays 100% of the brokerage fee. So I said, this is perfect for me. I don't actually have to charge any of my customers any money at all. I can just help them to buy real estate. And then if I can help them to find a property that's a good fit for them, I get paid, but not by them. That's fantastic. I would love to do that. What I did then is I started going to the bookstore every single day and reading books on, okay, but how do I build this into a business? Like, what does the business side of this look like? Because there's this whole entrepreneurial thing that I don't have any background in. And so I went to the bookstore every day, Nora. And if anybody knows LA, it was the Barnes and Noble at the Grove. And I just went there and sat there. I'd order an espresso and I'd sit there reading books every day. I didn't buy any books. I didn't have a job, Nora. So I was just sitting there reading these books. And this was 2007. And every day I would go in there. So the first thing I would do when I went in the bookstore is I would look at the new business bookshelf to see what came out. And one day in 2007, I walk in, and on the new business bookshelf was a brand new book had just been released called The 4-Hour Workweek by some guy named Timothy Ferriss that no one had ever heard of because he had just dropped this book this day. So I said, read the back of it, said, okay, sat down, read it the day that it came out. And I said, that's what I'm doing. Location independence is a currency that facilitates lifestyle design. So any business that I'm going to build, in order to build a, in addition to building a financial profit model, I am going to build a location independent infrastructure to facilitate the freedom of mobility so that I can run this business from anywhere in the world. And from there, once I had that vision, I just reverse engineered the entire business plan so that I would make sure I didn't make any geographically restrictive mistakes along the way. Oh, and by the way, I also realized when I was researching these businesses that I didn't have most of the skills required to build a business. And so I immediately recruited 2 business partners that have completely complementary skills that I do not have to come on board. And the 3 of us built the company together, and we're still running it today.
Wow. Okay. So many things. First of all, location independence is the currency that facilitates lifestyle design. I just want to say that again because that was beautiful. That was so well said. And I had a guest on another podcast who was all about the lifestyle design. He said, figure out the lifestyle first, and then you can find the career in a similar way of reverse engineering. So you knew you wanted to be location independent. You knew you wanted that lifestyle, and you reverse engineered something that you were already good at, found the people to fill the needs that you were not innately talented at, and built the business. Your business partners, are they also, I know your company is fully remote. Are they also living abroad, or are they based in the States? Are they a little more location dependent in terms of making the wheels turn on the Maverick Investor bus?
So this is a fantastic example to distinguish between being location dependent and being a digital nomad. right?
Yes.
Because you and I preached the same thing. Like when you said this on my podcast, I was like, yes, thank you for saying that, Nora.
All right, your turn. Now you say it on mine.
I'm going to say the same thing that you said, which is that my business partners, like me, are 100% location independent. They do not need to be in any particular place for any particular reason, for any business related purpose. They can design any type of lifestyle they choose and be anywhere they want. So we all have the exact same freedom of mobility and location independence. The way each of us chooses to exercise that freedom is different based on our personal preferences. So I am a full-time itinerant nomad. As you mentioned in the introduction, I have lived in 65 different countries over the last 8 years. I have no permanent base, and I travel the world with carry-on luggage only. So that's the lifestyle that I choose to live. My other business partners choose different lifestyles for themselves. One of my business partners has 2 kids and a wife, and he's married, and they live in the suburbs of Chicago, and they do their thing there, right? They could move tomorrow if they wanted to, right? Like, but that's where they live. And my other business partner also has a permanent base, although she just moved bases. And she does a number of international trips per year to really epic and cool locations. She and I actually have designed a number of super fun business trips, right? Which when she and I are doing them together, and we include some executive leadership meetings, that is now a business expense, right? So we, I've told you about one of my favorites was when we decided that our annual executive leadership meeting, we're going to do it on the Swiss rail system, where instead of sitting in a room for 8 hours a day and talking business, we are going to buy first class tickets on the Swiss rail system, 3-day rail pass. And we're just going to take the Glacier Express. We're going to take the Bernina Express. We're going to take all of these legendary epic train rides and just watch the Swiss Alps go by as we have our business meetings. And that now becomes a business expense, right? So we will build in the lifestyle design to our business. Like we had a company retreat one year, and we just rented like a villa in the rainforest in Costa Rica and had like chefs catering our meals and a sommelier bringing us South American wines and like, these types of things, and it's a business expense because we're doing company meetings and retreats and things like that. So we've actually integrated a lot of that lifestyle design into our company and our company culture.
I want to shift now, take this idea and shift it sideways to talk about lifestyle and the logistics of managing a business like this from abroad. Now you mentioned that you've run this business now from 65 different countries. Now I'm kind of jumping into, I'm imagining your daily grind as such as it is. And you have a lot of moving parts, and they're all based in the US. These are companies and people, contractors, builders, property managers, all these people on the ground in the States who you need to maintain certain contact with, as well as your business partners. Does that inform the destinations you choose to spend time in? Because I can imagine being in a place like Southeast Asia or Bali could be trying if you're not, prepared to be up in the middle of the night to do a conference call.
Okay, so the first thing is that one of the strategies here is to make your personal work responsibilities as asynchronous as possible so that you can do them on your time when you have the ability to do them. So the fewer things that you have specific time requirements on, the more freedom you have in this respect. And so at this point, my obligations are extremely asynchronous in terms of when I do things or need to do things and all of that. And that's by design, right? The other thing is that I have built and hired people to run things that are more, that are less asynchronous, or people that need to do things during business hours, right? So, like if we're doing a podcast interview or something like that, and we can talk to you, well, what time zone are you in? Oh, I'm here. Let's have a wine night. When would that be for me and for you? Okay, great. We'll do it then, right? So we make a convenient time. But in terms of like our clients, for example, right, our real estate investor buyers that are coming in and they're doing consultations, I have someone that runs our sales department and that does all of those consultations with all of those buyers on business hours, right? During business hours. Right now, we of course have clients around the world, so obviously he'll sort of adjust, if we need to accommodate them. But in general, his calendar will be open during business hours, and we'll have that. And he'll be doing those consultations on Zoom and all of this kind of stuff. So I have also, now he can do them from anywhere, right? I mean, that's another cool thing is that we have created a situation where all of our staff can also be location independent, right? And they can be, and some of them are full-time nomads and some of them are not, and that's okay. And they have the choice. But some of them do have more, less asynchronous responsibilities where they have to be available to interact with people in certain time zones. So they have to make some of those adjustments. But for me at this point in the business, I have made most of my responsibilities pretty asynchronous. And if I need to schedule something, I can schedule it at a convenient time. So really, it doesn't restrict my geographic choices of where I spend time at this point.
Wow, absolutely brilliant in doing that. That is, listen, you've definitely made it happen. You've made it work for you. Now, I know it's not all roses and buttercups. So what are some of the challenges of managing a business like this and managing a fully remote team while being a digital nomad?
I think in business, you have a number of different categories of challenges, right? You have certain things that are market related. Right. And so you'll have, so in real estate, for example, we'll have, I've been doing this since 2007, which means I was doing this through the real estate market crash of 08, 09. Right. So like we were on the whole entrepreneurial real estate roller coaster going up, going down, all this kind of stuff. And so one day you'll have a lot of people that want to buy real estate and then all of a sudden you won't. Right. So like as soon as COVID, let's use a more recent example, the COVID-19 situation. As soon as COVID-19, came storming in March, April, all of a sudden, nobody wanted to buy any properties. Everybody's holding on to their money. What's going to happen? Oh my gosh, like what's this going on? It's a global pandemic. This is crazy. Like everyone's scared and they're holding on to their money. So we were like, oh my gosh, there's not going to be any buyers to buy real estate. What's going to go on? All of a sudden, it flipped. And literally the opposite happened. And we now have one of the hottest real estate markets and the most buying demand I have seen in my entire career. And the opposite situation is now the challenge, which is the supply side, right? Which is that there are fewer houses to buy. Building supplies are going up in value. Houses are scarcer. It's harder to get them, like all this kind of stuff. So you have, so the supply demand imbalance. So all of those kind of business aspects are going on in general, right? Like that's a thing that's just constant. Any entrepreneur has to juggle that. Then you have, of course, the HR side of things, right? Which is that like companies are run by human beings and human beings have challenges of their own life or need direction and management, motivation, all of this kind of stuff. And so when you are completely remote, you just need to be intentional, I think, about doing that remotely, because it is possible for things to just sort of drift and for you to sort of lose, company cohesion and for you to sort of, allow company culture to dissipate and, all of this different kind of stuff. And so I think that, one of the positive things, though, as a result of that, is that I think that when you have a remote infrastructure for running your business, it actually forces you to be more precise in the design of your systems and processes because they're going to be run and delivered remotely. Whereas if you have an office, it's all kind of like, see people every day and you can talk about stuff and it's kind of like shortcuts and crutches you can use and this and that. If you're remote, you can't. So being precise in your systems and processes, and then your calls to sort of, go over the, whatever it is, the sales department kind of review of the lead funnel or whatever it may be. And you're really just kind of making things a lot more precise and organizing them, with greater precision, I find. So I actually use some of the things that people might be like, oh, that's really hard. Well, actually, the fact that certain things might be harder actually is oftentimes just a push to force you, the business owner, to do them more precisely.
So precision, definitely a lot of articulation and communication, I believe, might be the trifecta of success in running a fully remote company like this. Does that sound about right?
I think so. Yeah, for sure. And it pushes you to do it because if you don't communicate clearly and you don't have your systems and process precise, you're going to observe the results of that very quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, there's something else I want to observe and also get your opinion on. When we had our interview last week when I was on your podcast, I came out with the line that I believe that the digital nomad lifestyle on the whole has a shelf life, and that generally speaking, somewhere around the 10-year mark, a lot of people will come off the road and they will set up some kind of home base, or they'll return to their home country for a while, and sometimes they'll hit the road again or not. But there does seem to be this somewhere around the 10-year mark, and you're getting close to that 10-year mark. So I'm curious where you're at in terms of your lifestyle right now and where you see it going in the not too distant future.
So, well, first of all, I mean, let's just note that I've been back in my home country for 18 months as a result of COVID. So, I mean, this might be like a bizarre sort of like interruption to that norm that you're describing, right? When I have actually just been here, and I've been, in pretty much one place for a year and a half now.
And how has that felt? Has that been weird?
Yes, but I think it's been weird for everybody, not just for nomads.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I guess extenuating circumstances, right?
It's just been like this bizarre kind of crazy thing. So,
sure.
But I've been just trying to take the silver linings out of it, just spending quality time with family, or, focusing on, exercise and fitness, or like whatever you can kind of do in this environment, and just say, okay, I'm going to put more into this, and just really look at what are the benefits that I can get from this that I wouldn't get if I was traveling. Like, oh, I can spend a lot more time with my family than I normally do, or I can do, this other kind of stuff. So, which gets back to answering your broader question, which is that for me, I view location independence as really that's the jewel, that's the value, that's what gives you the freedom and the options. And the whole point is that we have options. And so on a daily basis, I am choosing my options based on what feels the most exciting and interesting and appealing to me to do in terms of lifestyle, right? And so a lot of the travel and the cadence that I've been doing now, sometimes, 65 countries in 8 years sounds like a pretty fast travel pace. Although, just to be clear, I have no base. So literally anywhere I am is where I'm living, right? So like if I go through a country for 4 nights, that's counted in the 65. Whereas other times, I was based in Cairo, Egypt for like 9 months, right? Or, I've spent probably 5 months in Cape Town, probably about 4 months in Buenos Aires. Like, so like I'll have, it's not all like just kind of racing around, but I design it based on what feels exciting and like the right pace for me to go. So if I wanted to slow down, or I wanted to stay for longer, or I wanted to not travel for a while, I could just do that. And I could make the decision tomorrow. And so just knowing that I have the freedom to do that, and that each of the choices that I make is just based on what's most exciting and appealing to me right now. And then if that changes 2 years from now, when I hit the 10-year mark, or if it changes however many years from now, then I can just adjust, and then I can go back, or then I can go whatever, or if I have a relationship partner and they can't travel and I want to be with them, maybe that's an incentive to go and do something different. And the entire point of location independence is that I can do that, right? Like a lot of people can't. Like if there's relationship partners and one of them, and they both have, traditional jobs, if you will, and one of them is required to move for their job and go here, and the other one can't, or has to go in this other place, like they don't have the ability to do that, whereas I do, right? And so do you. We can move anywhere to be with a person that we want to be with if they can't travel, or we can move to a friend of mine had to have surgery in Cape Town. She was going to be immobile for 2 months. She's one of my best friends in the world. She's going to be immobile for 2 months after the surgery. And it was in a foreign country, and she couldn't travel back to the States for the surgery. She had to have it there. And like her parents or whatever friends, like family, couldn't go there because they have their obligations. So I said, of course I'm coming to stay with you for 2 months in Cape Town and like, hang out and like take care of you after your surgery, because I had the freedom to do that. Right. And so for me, the motives aren't just like, oh, I want to live this, one particular type of lifestyle for one particular reason, and that's like the central motive. No, I'm location independent. So now if I want to go and spend time with my family, if I want to go take care of my friend, if I want to go hang out with these people I haven't seen in a while, if I want to go see this new part of the world and like have this epic thing, like I can do any of those. And so I just sort of continually reassess, like, what's the most exciting, interesting, and appealing thing for me, and what are my priorities right now? And then I'll just sort of continue to do that. So if it changes, it changes. And I think to some extent, it's always kind of changing and modifying,
Yeah, absolutely. And I think certainly in order to be successful in this lifestyle long term, it is important to take stock regularly and say, okay, so what am I doing? Where am I doing it? Why am I doing it? And how do I want to change it if I want to? And like you said, the ultimate freedom is being able to make that choice on a daily basis and be able to change up the style as well as the location and the pace and all these things. Surgeries aside, how do you choose your destinations?
So that's a great question. And there's a lot of different things that go into that, and there's different reasons I choose different destinations. So I initially started actually my first, if you want to go way back, my first 3 years of nomading were with a relationship partner. And I was in a relationship in Los Angeles and we lived together. And she was doing her PhD at UCLA in Egyptian history. And one day she comes home and she's like, yeah, so I got to go to Cairo for a year to do my dissertation research. I was like, cool, I'll go to Cairo for a year. Let's do it. So then we're like, you know what? We got 3 months over the summer before we get to Cairo. Like, why don't we go somewhere on the way? We're like, cool, where do we want to go? And we're like, Buenos Aires? Sure, Argentina's on the way to Egypt, isn't it? Like, let's do that.
Sure.
So we just did it. And then we were done with that. And we were like, well, we don't have to go back to LA. You've got your dissertation research. I can work from anywhere. Let's just, you got a year to write this dissertation. Let's just pull out a world map, pick the top 5 places in the world we most want to live, and just rent Airbnbs for 2 months in each place. So we were like Rio de Janeiro, Cape Town, Barcelona, and we just did that and went around the world. That ended up being like a year and a half. Like, let's do some island hopping. We'll do a month in Sicily, month in Malta, month in, Cyprus, So, I mean, we just literally did it like that. Like, what places seem totally epic that we really want to go and experience. And so that went for about 3 years. Then when she and I broke up, I actually jumped on a work travel program because the state that I was in, right? I had just gotten out of a very long-term relationship. And I was like, oh my gosh, I really need to get hugs. I need a community of people around me. I've been very isolated because it was just she and I just traveling the world together. I was like, holy cow. And then all of a sudden I had heard about this program called Remote Year, and they bring together like 50 people that don't know each other to start, and you travel the world together for a year. So it's like a built-in community. I was like, this is perfect. Nobody knows each other. Everybody's coming for community and wants to get to know each other. And we're going to travel the world for a year. So I'm going to have like a core community base and get to see the world with all these people, and then have the local experiences there out of that base that they provide. They do all the travel logistics. They take care of your flights.
They do all the work. I really like that element of it. Yep.
Yeah, like that's cool, but like the community, that was really what I was paying for. Like that was the value. That was what I needed at that time. I needed a community, right? So did that for a year. And I've done a number of these other work travel programs as well, Hacker's Paradise and some of these things where you kind of plug in for a month here and there, or go to, so in some cases I'll plug into a work travel program. In other cases, I will travel around because there's sort of an event that's happening that I want to go to or see, or maybe I'm speaking at it or whatever it may be. So I'll kind of like structure a travel that'll take me through this place at this time, and then what other places are near there that I want to see. And then other times I'll just organize, like I now know so many nomads in my social network that I can just hit up some people and say, hey, want to go do this bonkers epic thing. So a couple friends of mine and I just hit them up. I said, hey, do you want to just go through the French wine country for a month? And there's this festival in Bordeaux. It only happens once every 2 years. They've got the Dîner en Blanc event, which is like this pop-up elegant white party in Paris that's going on at this time. We go to Burgundy, drive the Route de Grand Cru in Burgundy, and just like drink all this Pinot Noir from like medieval like wine vineyards. Let's just spend a month doing it. And they're like, of course we want to do that. So like we just went and did it, right? Or like in 2019, I went through West Africa for 3 months with a couple friends of mine. One of my really good friends is a Kenyan nomad, and she had never been to West Africa. So I really wanted to go. She wanted to go. So we just said, let's do it. Let's go for 3 months. And so we went to West Africa. So we went to Nigeria for a month, Ghana for a month, Senegal for a month, did a quick swing to the Ivory Coast. And that was just, her and I, we had a couple of friends met us for other parts of that. But that was just a much more kind of immersive experience where I was with one, sometimes 2 or 3 people And then we were just really just kind of like living there and, doing the thing. So yeah, it really just kind of depends. It's a combination of like my bucket list places that I think sound like super epic and to do, and then like who I want to do it with and what else is going on.
I really, you're making me, we've been, of course, isolated for so long with the pandemic, and I've been 15 months now, almost 16 months that I haven't gone anywhere. It's the longest period of my life that I haven't gone anywhere. And you're talking about all these travel adventures, and I'm literally drooling. So, man, this is, I do look forward to hitting the road again, and perhaps we will share an adventure at some point in the not too distant future.
That would be amazing. I mean, the final thing I want to say about your question, though, is I also choose things based on the people that I want to see. So my social circle at this point is largely travelers and nomads and stuff like that, which is great because they can just like meet you anywhere, kind of thing. So, so there's a lot of nomads that are full-time itinerant, but I see them 3, 4, 5 times a year on purpose, right? We'll cross paths in this place or that place or spend this quality time together or whatever. And so a lot of the times too, I'll say, okay, like these people that I really want to see are going here, and either they're inviting me or I'm going to invite them to do this or whatever. So a lot of it is also people centric, because one of the other benefits of location independence is not just the physical geographic place that you're able to put yourself to spend time, but your choice to surround yourself with the human beings that you want to be surrounded by. That is an incredible value. And I make a lot of decisions based on that as well.
And, the one thing that's missing from that, from your breakdown there is, and I'm sure you do visit these places because I'm sure it's a great place to meet some of these people, but you didn't mention in any of those destinations, you didn't mention any of the classic digital nomad hubs. You talked about going on adventures to other places with digital nomads. And like I said, perhaps you met them in Chiang Mai as an example, or you got some downtime to get some work done in between. But what I really like is that you are truly on the road and you're experiencing worldly adventures that transcend, the regular pit stops, as you will.
100%. Yeah, I try to do that. And, I think you and I have a sort of a similar philosophy on that, right? Like I have spent a couple months in Chiang Mai. I have spent about a month in Bali. I have spent a month in Medellin and some of these other spots, right? I spent a couple months in Lisbon. And I do like these cities, and I see exactly why they're popular. I know a bunch of people in all of these cities, so it's super fun to go through and see people and connect with them. And like those cities are just set up, I mean, for, eating and exercising and working. And it's like remarkable, right? You just like swing through. And I love to see a lot of the people that have chosen to base themselves there as expats, right? Which is a bit of a different life than a style choice than an itinerant nomad. But I know a lot of people that have, and I do love to swing through those. But I also like to see a lot of other parts of the world. And I know a lot of other nomads that do as well. And so a lot of those are kind of more customized trips, like, hey, let's just go, I was supposed to go to some really amazing places in 2020. It all got canceled because of COVID, but I was supposed to spend at least a month in Pakistan and spend a month in Ethiopia. And I had like a lot of really, and these are two of my favorite food countries in the world, by the way. I have a lot of motives for going to places like Pakistan and Ethiopia. Let's be honest, there's a lot of motives, but and I found people that like really would appreciate that culture, really want to go there for the right reasons. It's the other thing. I try to roll with people to certain destinations who want to roll in that destination and have a similar type of cultural appreciation for that destination as I do, right? So the person I might roll with on a wine trip to France might not be the same person that I'm going to roll with to, street parties in West Africa and that kind of stuff. It might be a different person, right? Just depending on what are people into. What are they excited and passionate about? What is their kind of cultural appreciation, for this or that or the other thing? And I will a lot of times select my sort of travel cohort pretty carefully, which you should do anyways, right? But I sort of add that sort of, cultural appreciation overlay as I'm kind of picking my squad to roll to different parts of the world.
I think that we could ramble about this for ages, but I want to, maybe we'll do a part 2 later on. I want to close this out though with something that I said that I was going to quiz you on, and I'm following through my little bit of jealousy. You were featured in a documentary called Roamers. What was that like? And what was that like?
Super interesting story. So I get a cold email from a German film producer saying, hey, we're doing this documentary on the digital nomad lifestyle. We found you through your podcast and through your keynote address at the Nomad Summit. We saw the video or whatever. And we'd like to feature you in the film. would you be open to being one of the primary protagonists, featured in this documentary film? And so, my initial response, because I have no idea, this is a cold email out of the blue. So the first thing I said, okay, I said, I'm flattered that you invited me, thank you so much. Like, I'm really flattered that you would invite me to be in this film. I said, can you give me a little information about, is this film being backed by a studio? Is it fully funded? And who's directing it? And what have they directed before? Can you send me some of their stuff? And they sent it to me, and it was an award-winning director who had won like film awards at like the Berlin Film Festival and all this kind of stuff. And they said, yes, it's 100% funded, it's backed by a studio. We'll come meet you somewhere around the world. We'll still send a film crew to come meet you somewhere around the world, and basically just like mic you up 24/7, follow you around for a week, and like all this kind of stuff. And I was like, that sounds amazing. I said, my one thing that I just want to make sure is that, this is not, I said, because they're reaching out to me, that's all I know. I said, I just want to make sure that, in terms of how the film is presenting the lifestyle, that is not just going to present it as kind of like a white male Western type of lifestyle, and that all the protagonists aren't just like white dudes from like the US and Canada and Australia or something like that. And I said, I'm actually going to be in West Africa for 3 months. I'm going to be rolling with my homegirl, Agnes Nyamwange, who is born and raised in Kenya, went to college in Uganda. She's a full-time itinerant nomad, travels the world, full-time, just like I do. And I said, I think it would be amazing to have her in the film as well. One, because she's amazing and she's going to crush it, and she's going to like just add massive value to your film. And also because I think it would be important to have feature a voice of a sub-Saharan African female, nomad as well. And they said, we would love to do that. Yes, we're on the same page. We already have a Palestinian in the film. We have an Argentine couple. Like, this would be great to have Agnes and then have you. So they said 100% on the same page. We'd love to do it. And they said, where do you think would be a cool place for us to meet you to do the actual film? I said, well, we're going to be in West Africa for 3 months. So I said, how about in Dakar in Senegal? And that way you could feature this totally epic, West African city, which at the time I hadn't even been to yet, but like I had read it, like I just knew.
You knew.
And to be honest, I mean, having gone there, I tell everybody Dakar in Senegal is one of my favorite cities in the world. It's just amazing. So they said, cool, done. So they sent a 4-person film crew from Germany to Senegal with like $100,000 worth of film gear, right? So you had a producer, director, film, camera person, and audio person. And they literally mic'd us up from morning till night and like followed us around. And like we did a bunch of interviews, obviously, like sit down interviews with them. And then they followed us around and just filmed us like working or like going to like the fish market and like negotiating for like, because in Senegal, right, it's this huge fish it's right on the water, right? It's like the amazing beaches and sunsets and all this. And they have these fish markets, which are epic. And like, you can literally pick out your fish there and then they'll like cook it for you there if you want. And like serve it to you, can eat it like right down the water. So we're like negotiating for fish at the fish market and all this kind of stuff. And then I even had this situation where I matched with this was actually really cool. I matched with a woman on Bumble in Dakar, and we're chatting and stuff like that. And she's like, I'm not Senegalese, I'm actually Kenyan. And I'm here on vacation with my sister, who's also from Kenya. I said, that's amazing, because I'm here with my friend who's also Kenyan. I said, why don't the 4 of us go hang out, and well, you 3 can speak Swahili, and we'll just have like a fun sort of Kenyan night. And they're like, oh yeah, that'd be a blast, right? So it's always just more of like a friends thing, but it was very cool. And they actually filmed like that meetup that we had with them. We had drinks by the water and like that. So they're filming kind of like our life, like what it's like how we socialize, how we kind of interact with the locals at the markets, and as well as like how we set up our laptops in these by the pool and like do our work in these cool places and like all that sort of stuff. So it was it was a super fun experience.
What a fabulous snapshot of digital nomad life. I really look forward to watching this when it comes out. And where is it going to be released? Do you know?
Unclear. They are going to probably, I think they're aiming to do a theatrical premiere in Germany this summer. And then I think they're actually in the process right now of selling the film. And then whoever buys the film, that'll dictate sort of how the distribution will happen, both streaming and otherwise. So I will keep you posted though, for sure.
Very cool. And perhaps we can celebrate somewhere in some random place in the world. We can celebrate the release. Do you have any final words of wisdom for us today?
One of the things I love about the Maverick Show podcast is that I get to have super wise people like you and other digital nomad, world traveler, entrepreneur type folks to impart wisdom. And so if anybody wants to check me out or learn more about me or learn more about that from my guests, subscribing to the Maverick Show podcast and checking it out is probably the best place to get that, because that's where I get my wisdom from.
Very cool. Well, the Maverick, I can attest to it, as a guest myself, but also as a subscriber. Wherever you cast your pod is the place to subscribe to the Maverick Show. And I really appreciate you taking this time to chat with me about your business, your lifestyle, and adventures past, present, and future.
Awesome. And I look forward to anybody that wants to connect with me. Feel free to just reach out. I'm all over the place. If you want to follow me on Instagram at @BOWLES_Maverick, you can just send me a direct message. Happy to connect with you there, chat about real estate stuff or travel stuff or whatever. I love interacting with folks. So let me know what you thought about this video if you saw it.
So cool. And of course, please give it a thumbs up so other people can discover this amazing content themselves as well.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Nora. This was a blast.
Thank you so much, Matt. I really appreciate it. I'm Nora Dunn, and I'm otherwise known as the Professional Hobo, and I will catch you next time.